The ceasefire that was supposed to stop the Middle East from sliding into full-scale regional war may now be collapsing in real time. President Trump has declared the US-Iran ceasefire is now on life support. After rejecting Tehran's latest proposal to end the conflict, oil prices are surging again. Military planners are reportedly discussing renewed operations in the Strait of Hormuz, and behind closed doors, diplomats fear the next 72 hours could determine whether the region returns to war. Tonight on Free Press TV, we break down why negotiations are falling apart, what Iran actually demanded, how global shipping and oil markets are being weaponized, why Trump's own allies are divided, and how this conflict could reshape the global economy heading into summer 2026. Before we begin, make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and share this report. Because here on Free Press TV, we don't just repeat headlines, we follow the money, we follow the military movements, and we follow the power. And tonight, the power struggle between Washington and Tehran may be entering its most dangerous phase yet. On Monday, President Trump publicly stated that the Iran ceasefire was unbelievably weak and sitting on life support after the White House rejected Tehran's newest peace proposal, according to multiple reports. Trump allegedly called Iran's response a piece of garbage during remarks inside the Oval Office. That statement immediately sent shockwaves through global oil markets, diplomatic circles, and military command centers across the Gulf region. Because despite the temporary ceasefire announced in April, the war never truly stopped. The current conflict traces back to the massive escalation that erupted in late February 2026 after joint US and Israeli strikes targeted Iranian military infrastructure and senior officials. Iran responded with ballistic missile attacks, drone strikes, attacks on US-aligned bases, and most critically, the partial shutdown of the Strait of Hormuz. That single move changed everything, because nearly 20% of the world's oil supply passes through that narrow waterway. Following Trump's latest comments, Brent crude reportedly climbed back above $100 a barrel. Analysts warn gasoline prices could spike again. Shipping insurance costs are exploding and international supply chains remain vulnerable. Some estimates now place the total economic cost of the war at more than $29 billion. And behind the scenes, shipping companies are still terrified of the Strait of Hormuz even after ceasefire announcements. Commercial traffic through the region has remained inconsistent because operators fear naval seizures, drone attacks, mines, and renewed missile strikes. According to Reuters and multiple international reports, Iran's latest proposal reportedly included several major demands. Iran allegedly requested an end to US and Israeli military operations, removal of sanctions, recognition of Iranian control and sovereignty claims around Hormuz, compensation for war damages, easing restrictions on Iranian oil exports, and broader regional guarantees involving Lebanon and allied militias. But Washington reportedly viewed the proposal as unacceptable because it lacked sufficient nuclear concessions. Trump insists Iran must dramatically reduce or surrender portions of its nuclear infrastructure before any lasting deal can happen. Iran, meanwhile, argues that Washington is attempting to force surrender terms. That fundamental disagreement is now pushing the ceasefire toward collapse. This war is no longer just about missiles, it's about trade routes. Control of the Strait of Hormuz has become the center of the geopolitical chessboard. Reports indicate roughly 1,500 tankers, tens of thousands of sailors, and massive quantities of oil and liquefied natural gas remain affected by disruptions in the region. The US has reportedly continued portions of its naval blockade strategy while Iran threatens retaliation if commercial restrictions continue. Military planners are also reportedly discussing whether to relaunch maritime escort operations to protect shipping traffic, and that raises the risk of direct naval confrontation. Again, Axios reports. Trump's national security team has been actively debating military contingency plans if diplomacy completely fails. That reportedly includes discussions involving Vice President J.D. Vance, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, and Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. One proposal under consideration is a renewed maritime pressure campaign, sometimes referred to as Project Freedom. The goal: force Iran to reopen commercial shipping lanes without granting Tehran major concessions. But critics warn that strategy could easily spiral into a broader war. Trump's upcoming trip to China is suddenly far more important than expected, because Beijing remains one of Iran's most important economic partners, and Washington reportedly hopes Chinese President Xi Jinping could pressure Tehran into making concessions. But China has its own interests: energy security, trade access, and opposition to expanded American military dominance in the Gulf, meaning Beijing could become either a stabilizing force or another major obstacle. The political pressure inside the United States is also growing. Reports suggest many Americans are increasingly frustrated by rising fuel costs, economic uncertainty, and confusion surrounding the administration's long-term strategy. Critics accuse the White House of mixed messaging. At various points during the conflict, Trump claimed the war was nearly over. Iran had been defeated and shipping lanes had reopened only for fighting and disruptions to continue afterward. That inconsistency is fueling skepticism both domestically and internationally. Right now, Three possible scenarios are emerging. Scenario 1. The ceasefire somehow survives through emergency back-channel diplomacy. Scenario 2. The US and Iran continue a cold ceasefire with cyber attacks, naval pressure, proxy warfare, and economic escalation replacing direct combat. Scenario 3. The ceasefire fully collapses, and the region returns to open war. And if that happens, oil prices, shipping lanes, inflation, and global markets could all be hit simultaneously. This is no longer just a regional conflict, it's a global pressure point, because when the Strait of Hormuz closes, the entire world feels it. And as diplomacy weakens, every missile launch, every tanker seizure, and every political statement becomes capable of moving markets, militaries, and millions of lives. The ceasefire may still technically exist, but right now, it appears to be hanging by a thread, and the world is watching to see who cuts it first.